senior colleagues, just thank you. Sorry, there was a voice over my talk. So I want to say thank you to senior colleagues who are here as well, and just paying due obeisance before I start. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, this presentation to me, when I was just thinking about it, I thought I would rather do something that is a little bit participatory. So we're going to have questions at the end, not too rigorous in terms of lots of information and data and so on and so forth, because I feel like the truest forms of impartation, if you like, are when things are said from the heart and from the point of a story. So I'm going to relate this a lot to my experience, so that at least it sits with you, and hopefully it changes. Hopefully there might be, because if you're not already practicing collective leadership, hopefully there might be a paradigm shift, if you like, in the way that you approach leadership, if you were to follow my example. So just to say again, it is going to be more of a presentation around my experience, my journey, my story, and it's not going to be full of academic rigor, for those of us who are very academic here. So due obeisance again to the professors in the room. So having said that, I'll just go on to say as well that when Dr. Adekunle contacted me, that he would like me to share something, present something. He didn't give me a particular topic and just gave me the freedom, if you like, to think about what I would like to say to this August assembly. So I thought hard and fast. And of course, I decided to home in on leadership, because it is a very topical, a topical issue at the moment. I work for an organization, because I'm of course based in the UK here, work for the NHS. Not every physiotherapist works for the NHS. Some people work privately here in the UK, but I do work, I'm currently working in the NHS, and it is a topical issue. And I also know that at the moment, the Health and Care, it is called now, Health and Care Professions Council, who are the, if you like, the registrars of the UK profession here, the physio profession here, along with other professions that are allied to medicine, have recently sort of redesigned the core standards of practice or proficiency for physiotherapists. And part of it, the key component of that is leadership. So in the future, registrants would have to demonstrate how they meet this standard of practice or this proficiency. So it's something that has always been, but it's gaining momentum and is very topical. And you may wonder, why is leadership topical? I think, you know, we know, and I'm going to maybe elaborate more on that later, that leadership shapes culture. And it is important that at every level and at every cadre of healthcare, people see themselves as leaders who can influence and change things for the better. So I'm just going to try and share my screen as I go into my presentation. I just thought that I would kind of do that brief introduction and enthuse you. And hopefully we're going to have a good time today. Dr. Adekunle, I can't, at the moment, it's saying that you have disabled the sharing screens. I don't know whether you can make me the host so that I can share my screen. Is that all right?
Yes, I will do that now.
Okay. Just let me know when you're done so I can.
I think you should be able to.
Okay, hold on. Let's try to do that. Just give us a minute, please, as I try and sort this out. Sorry.
We can see now. We can see now.
Apologies. When I shared my I went on mute, so sorry about that. So let's see. Okay, can we see that now? Okay,
Yes.
right. So
Yes.
it's only because a lot of people are hidden, so I don't have a sense of who's so I think you need to
Yes,
stay
we
on the
can.
screen, Dr. Adekunle, so that I can see at least have a sense of what's
Okay.
going on. Thank you. All right. So as I said before I started talking, hold on, where is my screen? So the topic for today, like I said, is collective leadership, and I just gave a sort of preamble as to why this was important and why it's quite topical. Leadership itself is quite topical. Like I said, it is now a requirement for HCPC registrants to demonstrate leadership at every cadre, as well as it is my own lived experience in my current role as a deputy director of operations. And why collective leadership? Again, I chose it as a leadership model. Like I said, I'll kind of keep dovetailing into my own experience. So coming into role a couple of months, it's about 6-7 months ago, after managing several community services, I decided on this model of leadership, in order to be able to do and carry out my current duties in my division in the trust that I worked for. And I decided on this particular model because I find that it has worked for me before as one of the most useful tools in shifting some of the most challenging issues that I had faced and that I had inherited and had landed on my desk, as it were, when I started my role. Collective leadership is a model and a way, it's a framework of leadership. What this is not, it is not a leadership style. And I'm just going to talk briefly about leadership styles. So we have several leadership styles. We have the democratic leadership style, which is kind of characterized by sort of leading with almost in terms of being democratic and allowing people to vote on decisions and going with the majority rule and having consensus and so on and so forth. We have the autocratic style, which is usually the traditional style of leadership, which sort of is characterized by a top-down type of style and is quite directional and like to use the word dictatorial in its ramifications. And usually it just kind of has a lot of sort of negativity attached to that. And just to also elaborate, coming from Nigeria, it is the kind of style that I had experienced anyway many years ago, and that's the way we like to do things. We tend to want to devolve to the Oga at the top kind of scenario where power, decision making, and influence rests in one person, and that person dictates the tone of how things would move and how things should be done. That's quite autocratic. While it has its uses, because in an emergency situation, you don't have a time for demonstrating democratic leadership. You have to make a call, and sometimes it's kind of a singular call. So it has its uses, but usually it tends to kind of connote a lot of negative emotions, with people kind of resenting the leader and so on and so forth. So that is a type of leadership style. There is also the laissez-faire leadership style, which is more of a come see, come sa, we roll with the punches. It's usually directionless. We just see how it goes. And you can imagine that also that can, lead to decisions not being made, too many cooks, spoiling the broth, as it were. And, and it can have its own, sorry, and it can have, it can have some negative ramifications, although, like I said, it can also have its space and its place. And I think the other type of leadership style, we've talked about democratic, we've talked about the autocratic leadership style or directorial one, we've talked about laissez-faire, and I think a style that people also often use is more of a collaborative, compassionate type leadership, which kind of balances things a little bit and really works well with this leadership framework, collective leadership that I'm talking about today. That, for me, is where I find myself. And the importance of setting that apart is that, it's important to just note that a style is not the same as a model. Okay. And some styles are embodied in certain models. What fits very well with a collective leadership model is the compassionate and collaborative type of leadership that allows people to have a look into decision making. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to my second slide there. 1 minute. All right, it's not going up for me. That's it. So my context, like I said before, just like Dr. Adekunle said, I have been working in the NHS for close to 20 years. No, yeah, almost 20 years. Of course, I started from the very bottom of the ranks after coming in here from Nigeria. I actually had, I came here in 2001. I spent the first 2 years trying to get my accreditation, as it were. We used to call it adaptation at the time, to be registered on the Health Professions Council's register. And you had to find your own adaptation placement and all of that. In those days, nobody really cared. Whether or not, no matter what you came up with, whether you were first class, second class, third class, it didn't matter. You still had to go through that process and you had to find your own hospital. So it was quite laborious, unlike today where you could submit documents and get on the register. It took a while, and in that time had to then work as a rehab assistant and so on and so forth before getting on the getting a job, which I'd always wanted to work for. So I've worked in very various capacities as a physiotherapist, rotational, went through core rotations, rose to the rank of a team lead, managed several teams, several MDT teams as well, including occupational therapists, speech and language therapists. Then went on to managing bigger teams and nursing, podiatry, and so on and so forth. And then decided that I would like to pitch my tent in the community and then open myself up into managing even a wider swathe of services, everything from nursing to medical outpatients and so on and so forth. So we did that until I arrived at my current position, which I've already talked about before. The trust I work in, the NHS trust I work in, covers over 2 million residents across North London and Hertfordshire. As already said, I am directly responsible for operational delivery, performance, and transformation of the division that I work in. And all of my objectives are around delivering day-to-day basis to patients. All of the activities we have over, gosh, I would say on a weekly basis, we could be doing close to 30 to 40,000 activity or of intervention, clinical intervention, because we have over 30 services across adults and children, with a population of about 360,000. Our service budget is about 60 million pounds per annum and increasing as we take on more business. I am directly responsible for the line management of senior managers, the performance and transformation teams, as well as medical heads of services. So it is a huge portfolio, huge portfolio. And underpinning all of this, we've got complex contractual arrangements across multiple system partners. So across we say here is the integrated care services, integrated care board, and integrated care systems that encompasses all our GP partners, our social services, adult social care, children's care, and all of our huge acute trusts. So what we say acute trusts, we mean big acute hospitals that have, that look after the sickest of patients. So we have a lot of contractual arrangements to monitor and link with. So I say this so that I can paint a picture in your mind of what I have to do and have to deliver on. And in coming into role, what that meant for me, I quickly realized, and then just to also say before I move on, is to say that when I came into role, I also inherited a division in a flux, changing, lots of changes, lots of vacancies. There were lots of complaints. There were huge waiting lists. So across all our long-term conditions, we had people waiting close to a year sometimes before they could see the diabetes nurse or see the physiotherapists, MSK physiotherapists, the people who do outpatient physios. We had some people waiting close to a year and a half just to get into dental. And so there was a huge, there were huge issues that needed to be tackled and what we like to call wicked problems. So I quickly realized that, in order to actually make any headway at all, an Oga at the top kind of leadership style will not cut it. I'd always worked, like I said, in a collaborative way and in a compassionate way. But then I needed to step out of that and look at a whole model, of leadership that would ensure that I deliver on my responsibility, like I said before, on performance and of transformation of our services. So these are the driving factors. Now, I'm just going to hopefully, let me see if I can play you a short video. I hope it works. If not, I will just go on to the next slide, but let me know if this works. I'm just going to do a quick play. And this video is just a little summary around collective leadership.
Just to say, we could we could see the pictures.
But you can't hear the sound, yeah?
Not the sound. We couldn't see.
Okay.
We couldn't hear the sound. Yeah.
All right. Hold on. Let me see. Can we? Hold on. Okay. What I would do is just play it anyway because there's no sound overlaid in terms of any. It's just, I would say, white noise as opposed to any clear or specific sound relating to the slide. So I'll just play it and it's not going to go for 4 minutes. Don't worry, I'll stop it at some point. So if we just kind of read the slides and see what we get out of it. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. I'm just going to progress very quickly from that video then and move on. So it's just a bit slow. Okay, so in essence, I just wanted us to have a look at that. I mean, to listen to that video, just to give us a flavor. I've been talking about leadership styles, a leadership model or framework, and just giving us a bit of a flavor of what it is. And then I'm just going to go into a bit of detail here. So if we can just look at the screen, essentially I've just, looked at a paper written by Kingsfund in 2014, and there are several papers on this, but this is the one that jumped out to me and was kind of quite simple in its description of what this model is all about. So it is the distributing and allocating leadership to where talent, capability, and motivation sits within an organization. It essentially means everyone taking responsibility for the success of the organization as a whole, and not just for their own area. Collective leadership shares power, collective leadership shares responsibility, and it shares influence. What collective leadership is not is it's developing individual capability or stars, in an organization. And like I said before, it is definitely not a personal leadership style. It's a framework and a model. Now, if I just want to draw out a few things here. In terms of what Kingsfund says, and Kingsfund, by the way, is a very strong and strategic think tank here in the UK that really influences policy, health policy particularly. Um, if we look at that statement, essentially, it is saying that as a leader, you must look within your ranks and you must be able to see where talent lies for certain types of tasks or jobs or challenges that you're facing or that you need to complete. You must look within your ranks, and that you must give people with the most knowledge or know-how about that particular challenge or deliverable or whatever it is that you want to do. You must give them the power and authority to solve the issues and to deliver on them. And I know that this goes against an ingrained system of hierarchical power where the leader is supposed to know it all and deliver it all. But if you're going to progress and if you're going to use the best capabilities within your team, then this is what you need to be doing. And certainly this is what I did. And I'm going to go back, dovetail back again to sort of where I was when I talked about my own current situation. It means that everyone takes responsibility for the success of the organization as a whole. I mean, to me, it's music to my ears because nobody wants to be the single point of failure where the buck stops with you as the senior most person in the team, but also you take the flak for any mishaps or anything that happens. And it's, as we know in healthcare, particularly in the country where we are, where things can be quite litigious, and people can, and do sue for things that go wrong. I think it's important to harness the power of the team and to dissipate, the need for everything to be centered at the top, because many hands make light work. Many hands make light work. Some of the criticisms of collective leadership is that, well, I've been employed to do X, Y, Z. It is my responsibility and I'm accountable. Yes, the leader remains responsible and accountable. But in allowing people who know and can do in certain aspects of the role to get on and do what they need to do, and empowering people to do what they need to do, then that becomes like a collective holding. And actually that protects the leader and ensures that everyone has a buy-in and actually carries everyone through safely. It's my experience. By devolving power or influence And I can't, let me just say, it's okay to do that. Personally, I feel you do not lose face or you do not lose respect, because at the end of the day, when a decision needs to be made and you've devolved power or influence, and if there's a conflict, the power to make a call still rests with you. So it's not losing face and it's not losing credibility. It is actually making sure that there is safety in numbers. And so I just wanted to set that very clearly before we go on. So why is this very important? Why is this important? It is important, well, to me, because leadership kind of shapes culture, and culture affects quality of patient care. So if you're in a healthcare system and you're in a health, well, must I kind of just quickly wind back a bit to say that I know that I'm presenting this on the on an organizational kind of basis where you're looking at people at very senior roles, but I think this is also very applicable to any level that we find ourselves in a healthcare organization, particularly. So it can be used if you're a team leader. It can be used if you're somebody who is at the beginning of your career and you're looking after a group of people or students or whatever. It's about finding where the gems are and making sure, finding where the talent are, finding where the gems are, making sure that you are harnessing that and giving people freedom and opportunity to use that, because in doing that, everyone owns the goals, the aspirations, and also the wins of that particular service or organization. Now, just going back again to why is it important? Why is leadership important? Why do we consider it? Whether we like it or not, leadership it really shapes culture, and you find that the body of an organization or a service usually would take the shape or form of the person leading it. If you have a very directional leader, somebody who um, actually doesn't believe anybody else has the answer, somebody who always wants to be the decision maker, somebody who's always wants to be at the top and influential, and the orga at every level, you find out that is what is going to be seen in the rank and file of that service or that organization. Everyone will kind of copy it because that's what they know to do and that's what is real to them. And of course, you have the negative impact of that kind of leadership style. Leadership indeed shapes culture. And then if there's a culture prevalent in an organization, but be it good or bad, depending on the type of leadership there is, there's a very, very strong correlation, proven correlation, and with many, many papers backing it up, that that culture will affect patient care. So if there are leadership cultures that normalizes blame, that normalizes complaints, that normalizes hierarchical behaviors, you can bet your top dollar that in such a place, the quality of care to patients will not be great, because nobody would care, because leaders in that organization don't really care and their word is law. But conversely, if you're in an organization that cares, and if you're in an organization that shares, that helps you understand why you are where you are, that values your thoughts, that values your input, that allows you to bring your best and creative ideas to the table, that doesn't shun you or slap you down when you talk, that allows you, gives you creative freedom within limits, of course, and certain boundaries, you find that there's a strong correlation between such cultures and great quality care for patients. And as physiotherapists, that's what we're here for, and that's what most of us trained for. And that's why we are, we do the jobs that we do. Nobody wants to go and do a bad job, but if your organization is quite toxic, I think it's going to affect how you take care of your patients with the best will in the world. So that is why this stuff is very important. And just to say, because collective leadership, if it's practiced, is such that power is devolved and that people can and bring their best selves to the table, that means that wherever you are on your journey, whether in the UK, whether in the US, whether in Nigeria, seek to be part of the solution. Seek to be a leader in your sphere, wherever it is, in your department, irrespective though, just seek to be part of the solution, seek to be a leader, seek to influence positively and correctly, because at the end of the day, it is patient care, that suffers if this is not the case. And this is why we're linking collective leadership to a culture of quality care for patients. And I'm just going to speed this up now. So if we're just going to look at a comparison between sort of traditional model of leadership and the collective model, like I said, the traditional model is essentially made up of command and control. I say, you do, no questions asked. It's about an individual manager or person, whereas in a collective leadership model, it is about the team, the people, and what they bring to the table. Traditional kind of leadership really sort of drives itself on positional power, and I keep making a reference to Oga at the top, it is, I've arrived and I hold swathes of power and it's my decision and my way or the highway, and that kind of characterizes that kind of traditional stereotype. But in a collective leadership model, personal power is actually based on knowledge and strengths. Again, it is based on, if you're breaking a challenge or an issue down, who has the most knowledge in that area? Who can actually do this for us? So I'm going to just really stop here and talk very briefly about, again, linking it to my own workspace at the moment. So I've got fantastic performance managers and transformation managers who are good at what they do. They're good with data. They can see trends. They can, they can spot a failure from a mile off. Okay. And what have I done? I have used their skills and experience to bolster some of the I would say some of my objectives or the division's objectives to manage challenges around waiting times. Okay, so if we're in a meeting, because I know they're the subject expert matters, I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to allow them prefer solutions, and I'm going to allow them to drive the direction of the decision making. But if we do come to a bit of a conflict, or if we come to a bit of an indecisive situation, then I can make a call. But I allow my experts to shine and I allow them to lead their subject matter areas. And I'll tell you much later about how this has really driven our performance up in the right direction. Another characteristics I would say of the traditional model of leadership is like I said, it's the processes are directional. So it's one person's idea and way of doing things, and their way or the highway. Whereas in a collective leadership model, the processes are collective. Everyone chips in to say, look, this is how this should be mapped out and this is how this should be done. And people are trusted and are able to do the right thing. And in terms of accountability, with the traditional model, the buck stops at the top, like I said before, but with the collective model, accountability is shared. Now, there is always a hierarchy. I am a leader. I take responsibility and accountability for how things work. But in devolving certain aspects, to my team of managers, everybody owns it. Everybody owns it. And I do not micromanage them. I allow them to use their you know, they're given strength and knowledge so to drive up performance in their area, and they own it and they want to deliver on it. And that is, to me, a better way of working. So we talk about this. Sorry, there's an echo coming through. Let me just make sure that's clear. And then we talk about how do we, but how, you know, it's you know, we've talked about, you know, how collective leadership is I think it's a more superior model to a more, or to the traditional way of leading people or leading teams or leading organizations. But then again, how do you create it? How do you make it happen? What do you do to make this, you know, the flagship of how things are done in your space? So I've just written here just 3 or 4 points. Like I said, I don't want to do death by slides with lots and lots of slides and so on and so forth, because I have 1 or 2 references that you can go and do your own research and really get into the subject matter better. But how can we go about doing this? So the first thing I've said here is to create a positive mindset. Create a positive and supportive environment for staff that enables staff to also create a caring and supportive environment for their patients in the delivery of higher quality care. And this simply means that the first thing you do as a leader is create an environment that is non-toxic, an environment that is not blaming, where if mistakes are made, the purpose is to learn from the mistake, not to point fingers at people. Create an environment where people can be free to speak up. Create an environment where you do not lead by rumors. You lead with facts. So it is not about favoritism and somebody having your ear. It's about being transparent, being honest, being open, and allowing people to own the space and be free to speak up if things are wrong, knowing that if they speak up, they're not going to be blamed, but that the focus is on learning from mistakes. Because usually when there's a failure, I dare say 90% of the time, it is about the processes in that department or that service. It's not about the person. Usually processes have not been put in place properly, systems have not been put in place, escalations haven't been put in place properly, possibly the materials or resources needed haven't been put in place. So the focus should be on those and not on the person. And if there is a deficit with the person, again, possibly training hasn't been provided. And if training has been provided, they haven't been supported to perform whatever it is that they need to perform. So when we create positive and supportive environment for staff, it enables people to own their issues and to provide solutions to them, and thereby creating a very positive environment where patient care can thrive, quality care can thrive. Secondly, when you create a positive and a supportive environment for staff, it's important also that staff are clear, very clear on your vision, your mission. What is it that you want to achieve? What are the objectives? What are the agreed objectives of the service, of that team, of that department? What are they? And how do you break all of that down to ensure that everybody has a part that links together to perform that vision or goal that you're trying to achieve? I'll give just one example. In my place of work, I've got a couple of very clear, large scale goals and objectives that I've set and that have been set for me by my own director. Now, all the managers that I line manage have objectives that link into my objective, and their clinical and service managers have objectives that link into their objectives. So it's a whole chain of objectives down to the auxiliary nurse on the ward, as we would say in Nigeria, but here we'll call them healthcare assistant. So the healthcare assistant's objective is linked to the ward sister's objective, is linked to her clinical lead's objective, is linked to her service manager's objective, is linked to the head of service, and is linked to the business and support managers, and then it links to me and them. So everyone's objective is aligned because everyone knows what we want to achieve and everyone is working in the same direction. This is very critical in the collective leadership model. And last but not the least, is when you've created that environment, when you've linked, when you're clear about your objectives, your goals, your aspirations, you must also then enable and empower staff to make aligned decisions by engagement and providing relevant training and development. So it's not enough to create an environment. It's not enough to have a clear objective and mission. Then you have to keep engaging. You have to keep checking that people's outputs are aligned, if you like, to the overall and overarching objective that we have set or you have set. And again, just to give as an example, we will do lots of away days. I would lead on, I've just actually concluded an away day with the administrative staff. We have about 80 administrators in our division, and I've just recently concluded that. An away day with them, checking in, making sure that their vision is aligned, and just making sure that they feel part of the clinical teams. You know, we would have regular team briefs, we would have regular webinars, you know, where we're bringing our staff, you know, together, checking on them and making sure that they feel empowered to make decisions, but more importantly, they have a forum, you know, to escalate things and to ensure that, you know, we're all working together in one accord. So what are the benefits of collective leadership? It allows a culture where all staff members are likely to intervene to solve problems, to ensure quality of care, and to promote responsible innovation. And that speaks for itself. I don't need to kind of break that down, because when people own when they own their own smoke, they will consume their smoke and they will find a way, you know, to solve their problems because they are invested in it and because they know that their voice matters. It means that an organizational performance does not rest on a number of quality leaders alone. Like I've said, we don't breed stars. There's no I in team. We're all in it together. It breeds alignment and commitment. So more benefits, it unleashes creativity, allowing people to work together. And because more people are kind of involved in decision making with you as the leader, you know, having that overarching view, it's, you know, it kind of ensures safety, you know, in the kind of decisions that you make in your organization. It brings about sustainable change because when people own their own solutions, when they prefer it, when they own it, it is likely to be sustainable, obviously with the right resources backing it up. It motivates people through authentic engagement and is able to create a lasting care culture, or a lasting caring culture. And the whole essence of this type of leadership model, essentially, because we're in healthcare, is to ensure that there is a caring culture and a culture where patient care is, you know, is robust and it has the quality that it needs. So having said that, I know at the beginning I talked to you about my context and some of the things that I found on the ground sort of when I started in my current role. So in ensuring that we have put in, you know, that collective leadership is a kind of byword and watchword that we have put in, we have kind of developed a strong engagement from staff. And there is respect because we're transparent about the things that we need to do and where we are. There have been great performances in our waiting times, which I cited as a problem from before, across multiple services, particularly with our long-term conditions, diabetes, heart failure, spirometry, podiatry, and even working towards minimizing our wait in musculoskeletal physiotherapy appointments and across a whole suite of children services as well. Of course, we have had a reduction in sickness absences. there have been a reduction in complaints, and there's been a consistent and greater patient satisfaction, in what we call family and friend test measure, because every service has to have what we call a family and friend test measure, which is a series of questions that asks people who have engaged in our services how they think that we've treated them, and whether or not they will be recommending us to their family and friends. So these are the great outputs from this kind of leadership style, or rather a leadership model that we, or I, have taken on in our division. So in a nutshell and in summary, collective leadership has worked for me. Collective leadership has ensured that I deliver on my objectives of delivering a service that is safe, that puts patient care at its forefront, that is effective, and that is responsive. And I found it a useful tool in my toolbox, because there's a lot of tools in one's leadership toolbox. I found it very useful, and I really do recommend it to everyone. I have put in a link here. I have a few more references I didn't manage to put in there. If anybody, really wants to go and just do a little bit more reading and a bit more research around this type of leadership model. And so if anyone wants that, I can always add it to the presentation. But there we are. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. And I hope that was not too boring. And if you have any questions now, it'll be a great time to ask them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mudupe Shuriola. I think I know, permit me to move the protocol and just debate. I did observe that we had done the introduction of our guest, our speaker, before the recording started. And I think it would be a disservice, considering the wonderful session you've delivered and everything. I'm going to go back and just recite that session just before we go into question and answers. And I can actually say quite some people here, and I believe they are all here for MPT UK and for Mrs. Modupe Shuriola. I can say the Deputy Provost, College of Medicine, Professor Adeni Fatai. I can say Adenot Paul from US. So, I mean, wonderful. Thank you all for coming. Permit me, like I said again, I would revisit the introduction. Mrs. Modupe Shuriola received a BSc in physiotherapy from the Nigerian Premier University, the University of Ibadan, in 1999. She completed internship at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and then she proceeded to the then General Hospital Bagada. It's now LASUT for her NYSC. Shortly afterwards, she left Nigeria in 2001 to join her husband, who had gained admission to study his PhD at the prestigious King's College, London. That is our own Professor Isaac Shuriola. Mrs. Shuriola backed her MSc in Executive Health Management from City University, London in 2014. She has worked in the NHS in various capacities as service manager and currently as Deputy Director of Operations in NHS Trust. Thank you again for your time. If I may just listening to your presentation, and quite a lot there to pick. Your what in leadership, which shapes culture. Sorry, can I? Okay, and culture which affect quality of life. And you've just mentioned that you've said a lot about collective style of leadership, but you've also said that you've got to have your leadership toolbox, in which case you choose sometimes how you approach issues. Will there be occasions where you have to vary your leadership, your approach to leadership? And what will you say would inform such context? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. If you at the beginning of the presentation, I was very clear that we all have, or rather, people do tend to have a particular type of style in which they lead. You know, I talked about directional leadership, which is quite autocratic, and top-down democratic leadership style, where decisions are made by consensus. There's a fair where anything goes, and let's just see what comes out at the end. And a more sort of compassionate, collaborative type leadership that kind of balances out both of those kind of opposing camps. Now, as a person myself, I have, and like I say, there's no right or wrong way to lead. None of this is right or wrong, if you like. None of this is working in one style alone is not right or wrong. So personally, my style kind of differs depending on the situation that I find myself. In a business as usual situation where, there are no surprises, I know what's coming, we have our processes, everything aligned, and we know what our outputs are. I kind of tend to work in that collaborative type style where we're sitting around the table, I'm listening to you, we're kind of putting heads together and so on and so forth, I'm moving things on. There are times where I am directional, okay, and I can dip into that when a decision needs to be made and possibly we're in an emergency situation. There is no time for consensus sometimes. There is a time where you just have to come in, make a call, and get something done. So maybe in emergency situations, so there's usually command and control. So for example, during the COVID period, there wasn't a lot of time to think through processes, procedures, policies, and things like that. And we had to make decisions on the go. In a performance situation where possibly there's been a situation where somebody has made such a drastic error. Like I said, we don't blame people. We look at processes and procedures, if you like. Well, maybe there's been a situation where there's been somebody has killed, maybe a nurse has killed somebody, for example, and we need to get them off the ward. That is not a time for consensus. That's the time to make a call. So we have situations. I have situations where I step into the command and control, but I tend not to stay there because research has shown when you stay in that command and control autocratic leadership style, you alienate people and you do not actually even get the result that you're hoping for, or and what you want to see done. So you step into certain things and you step up. But my general style is quite collaborative. I will step into command and control at times. I could also be democratic. It just depends on sort of the situation I'm dealing with. What a leadership style is not is it's not a model. Like I say, this whole collective leadership that I've talked about is a whole, I would say, model that has elements of a person's personal style within that model or framework. So that's the difference. I hope I answered your question and it wasn't too long-winded.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I could see Professor Adeniyi. Please, your hand is up.
Okay. Good evening, distinguished or morning, depending on what part of the globe you are, distinguished colleagues. I am very happy to be part of this call this evening. And most especially because the speaker happened to be a very distinguished member of my class, indeed a classmate since we gained admission into the University of Ibadan. And of course, I also had that very rare privilege of having my internship together with her at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. And I must say that I was quite excited listening to her profile, how she rose through the ranks to, to the top of the cadre where she is right now. And it was very thrilling also listening to her lecture on the collective leadership. And that is also, especially because somehow we all have attained that level at this time. Gradually, like the common saying, the young shall grow. And, at some point we're all students, but today we all have found ourselves in leadership positions. And so the lecture is very, very well taken. And, in fact, I was just enjoying the lecture because she was making very practical points, and which I believe we all have to make use of. Having said that, let me ask my question specifically with respect to the constituency that I represent, which is the training institution. I know that whatever we do today, it's usually a manifestation of all the various inputs that we have had while developing into our career platforms and portfolios. And the very lowest part of that progression is to talk about the possibility of having this collective, the tenets of collective leadership taken right from school, right from the training level. It's very difficult for an individual who has lost all the traits of a leader described in this lecture of today to pick it up at the top career level. So my own thinking is that, or maybe what I want the distinguished speaker of today to probably put up as a recommendation for us, especially at the training institutions, is what are those things? What are those things we do right, and probably those things we don't do right, especially at physiotherapist training institutions in Nigeria in particular. Generally we say we have observed that more or less, and especially in the last couple of years and what is happening currently, it appears we are training for export. And so when we train for export, then it is very important that whatever we are exporting, even though we are not happy training for export, but then whatever is being exported from here has to be of outstanding quality. And especially at the center of that is the leadership characteristics that we need to do. So what is it that you may want to recommend? I dare say that maybe a few things have changed. I mean, talking to Dupe now, when we had our training and now, but then you probably interact with recent graduates from Nigeria and so on and so forth. So what are these things you may want to recommend to us, especially with respect to training very quality graduates that will be leaders of tomorrow? So thank you very much. I must also thank the anchor man, my very good friend, Dr. Ademola Adekunle. I'm actually driving. I have to park now. So
oh, wow.
you can see my. So I just had to. I was listening to the lecture while driving. So Dr. Ademola Adekunle, thank you. It was very nice seeing you, and congratulations. And I hope you guys are able to sustain this. This is very beautiful. Dupe, congratulations. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, our able prof. Great. Okay. Do you want me to take that
Please.
kind of answer? Yeah. So again, in the spirit of collectiveness, there's somebody here who actually will give you a resounding answer to that, because he trains physiotherapists, and as part of his curriculum or the curriculum has developed a whole leadership module, for the students. Because I think you're absolutely right. Yes, where if it's wrong, but it does feel like we're training for exports in Nigeria, unfortunately. And it's important that this subject matter is at the forefront. But like I said again, I'm going to, if you don't mind, invite Professor Shoniola to speak to that, because as we speak, actually, he's just developing a model for leadership within the MSc cohort in his institution. So can you please take that question?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Chime into that. Hi, everybody. Happy to chime into that. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Prof. How are you,
Yes.
sir?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you. Thank you. It's indeed a privilege to hear my wife talk about leadership, which is exciting to hear, actually. She's a wise woman, I would say, in terms of leadership and all that. But I'm happy to say that with respect to what Prof. Fattah has mentioned, I think what will be important to know is that there's quite a lot of frameworks out there that has been developed. So most of these have been developed for the United Kingdom, but then they will have applications for other parts of the world with some modifications I'll add. Essentially, it talks about 3 areas to focus on in a pre-registration curriculum. The first one is a focus on the self. So in training students to become effective leaders, you've got to think about the person. To be a good leader, it's important to have an intimate understanding of oneself. What drives that person? What the values of the individual, what the values are, what are their motivations, for example, what are their personality like. And it's important to ensure that people become aware of those things, because leadership emanates from the individual, from the inside of the individual. And when we as healthcare academics, when we enable students to embrace their uniqueness and their value. Ms. Modupe, she was talking about, looking for the rare gems, the gems in our organization. You see, when people recognize what their uniqueness is, then they embrace it, they develop it, and then they become the gems that the senior managers are able to tap into when they need to put them into the right holes, putting the round holes in the round pegs in the round holes, like they say. So it's through embracing a continuous curiosity towards understanding of oneself that one can develop their leaders. So that's one level, looking at the students and helping them to become aware of what their strengths are, what their motivations are, what their value systems are, and all those things, because leadership emanates from that. Then the second aspect of developing leadership in pre-registration students is teaching them how to work with other people. One of the bugbear of mine is when you find people who just cannot work with other people. They think they have to be the head. They always have to talk at all the times. And such people cannot lead because they always want to be the oga at the top, like they say. So in teaching people to become effective leaders, they've got to learn how to work well with others. So that's the next level. People cannot work well with others if they don't understand themselves, what makes them tick, what annoys them, what doesn't annoy them, what they're happy with, and all that. But when they understand that, then they know how best to work with other people. They have the emotional intelligence, which emanates from them having an understanding of their own emotions. They'll be able to reflect that when they see it in other people, and then know how best to work with it. So, having a good understanding of oneself, having embraced the understanding of oneself to work with other people is so important. So teaching students to work with each other, teaching students in physiotherapy to work with doctors, to work with other professional bodies, so that they can know how to interact with one another when they are in other places, will be very important in teaching them how to be leaders. And the last aspect of leadership is teaching people how to lead others. You can't lead people until you understand their emotions, until you have the emotional intelligence to know how to talk to people and things like that. So it's also important to teach people how, to build relationships, to leverage on the strength of other people. In the way Ms. Shirala has talked about today, to know how to lead people. You don't necessarily have to be the most intelligent person in the room to lead, but you've got to understand the strength of the other person and know where they fit in the task that's at hand, and to know how to deploy them effectively. So I believe that, using this framework of focus on self, working with others, and teaching people how to lead others will effectively, help them to become leaders. Now, there's so many ways to do that, but the ways to do it would be dependent on the context of that setting, that society, that university, that healthcare facility or healthcare system. So I think I'll stop there so that I don't bore you with the nitty-gritty of that. So I think using that framework will help. There are so many other ones as well, but I'll just drop that so that people can have a think about that. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Professor Shinola. Thank you so much. Please just know this is a very, such a topic everybody, at least most people want to ask questions. I'm just conscious of time. Please, we will take 2 more questions before we move on to, end this session. And I have someone who had raised his or her hand. Please, who is using, AI. Okay, I didn't know. That's you. Please, if you can unmute and ask your question. Thank you. Adenot, are you still there? Okay, I think we will move on, probably come back to you. I've also got another hand up here. Okay, it's the same person. Adenot, are you, if you are there? Okay. Otherwise, I think if anyone else has any question to ask, we have, our time is fast spent now. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we would, at this point, bring the seminar to the end. Again, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you at the next seminar of the MPT UK. Thank you very much again, Mrs. Modupe Shinola. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Is that
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Please, yes, quickly, you can ask your question. We're trying to reach you.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to, the device I was just kind of messing up. Quickly, I want to just say thank you, Mrs. Dupeshonela, for the wonderful presentation. Very, very apt at this time. I'll say quickly that the Shoriolas are very good friends of mine. I'm privileged to have been a classmate with Dupe, and our second year in the university, herself, myself, and Dr. Ogumike were just 3 bodies that studied the whole of that year together. And I can say that I know a little bit of her from then on, how she's developed. And of course, our classmate knows that she's been somebody who has a very good values, and she's never been somebody that you can push over. And I'm happy to see how she has developed to where she is right now. I want to say, she said this is going to be interactive. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to interact this way. I happen to know a little bit about the UK as well, because I worked there about 10 years. I worked doing at different NHS trusts. I worked in at least 10 different NHS trusts. Cutting to the case, what she's trying to present today, this collaborative leadership, It's something that I've seen in action when I worked with an organization called Mayo Clinic. That is like the #1 hospital health organization in the US, if not in the world. And I see how this worked. The very least person in that organization, even if you're just a cleaner on the ward, they say when you see something, you say something, their opinion counts. And if you see something going wrong, make an observation. Within hours, that thing can go all the way to the top. They say patient first. That's their value. That's like their mission statement. And everybody walks towards that. And you see that your opinion counts and you don't get punished as she's tried to present. Last year, I completed an MBA. And one of the courses I did was on leadership. And I was surprised that, okay, why are we doing this in MBA? It's about management, but I was surprised. And what she just taught us today, or she spoke on, is just a tip of the iceberg. And I want to link this to the question of Professor Adeniyi, because that was one of my questions before, that this ought not to even be, and that maybe this will also go to Professor Shoniola, because I know he's training physical therapy therapists in the UK. He said this leadership curriculum is being set up for the people at the master's level. Maybe it should also cut down to the first degree level so that everybody can have this taste of leadership, and it should be incorporated into our curriculum. Not only for physical therapy, I would say it should cut across all courses in the university. And that is where it links to my question to the speaker of today, that your own leadership style and all that you're using right now about leadership, did you gain it while you are rising through the rank of working in NHS, or did you have to go for a training like I just did a course in it? I've also happened to be in a leadership position before when I was in the military, and then you are used to that autocratic style of leadership. And that is actually in all military all over the world. But even then, while I was in leadership position then, I was not always using that autocratic type of leadership style, because that's not me naturally. And so I want to know, did she get to where she is right now by virtue of going for a course? I know she's gone through a master's program in which probably leadership will have been taught. Did you have to learn this in other courses, or did your experience growing through NHS in the last 20 years help you to get to where you are right now? And I know you've done your homework based on what you presented. As you were presenting, I opened actually my textbook on leadership because I was with my iPad. I'm with my iPad here, and she just kind of covered chapter 1 of that textbook. By the side, for Professor Adeniyi, I can recommend that textbook for you later on that you can look into for personal development and maybe putting something together for them in the College of Medicine Ibadan, where you have greater influence even beyond therapy. So I would like the speaker to just let us know how you've developed to this level of leadership. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you, Adenut. It's always a pleasure to see you. You know that. Always a pleasure. Such a honorable man. Thank you. Now, can I just say that you're absolutely right. What we just presented is a tip of the iceberg. We only have, I don't know, a few minutes, 30, 40 minutes to talk through a type of way of being a leader. So it's just a tip of the iceberg. So it's essentially it's a journey. Now, my leadership development
please 1 second.
Okay.
Please 1 second. I want to make a 1B to that question. And the first one is personal. The second one is that are leaders born or are they trained? Now we want to link that back to Nigeria, because we are probably mostly Nigerians here. That we have people in leadership position, people in politics or at one different level. The problem we have in Nigeria, we've always all discussed it as a problem of leadership. Is it because leadership are not trained, or they are not born as leaders, so that this can also help us? Maybe if we have leadership as a course across all courses in the university, then people will be reoriented nationally to have the right perspective before they even get out there. Because one day these people are going to turn into leaders. Are they prepared? Are they trained? Or we just expect them to be born as leaders and just vie for office and get there without even having the right trait?
Okay, so just to quickly, because I know time is running and I can see Dr. Adekule twitching on his chair a little bit, thinking, oh, we still have to have a meeting
No,
after
it's
this.
okay.
So no, that's fine.
I think we had a bit of time delay.
Yeah, we had a
Voice
delay in
there.
starting, yes. So I would say that, yes, it's the tip of the iceberg. It's nothing near the depth that one needs to know in terms of how to be. My journey to becoming a leader is essentially that. It's a journey. It's a combination of learning from textbooks, from seminars like this, for many, many years. So I've been in leadership positions now for like 10, almost close to 10 years. I have been managing huge suites of people and services and things in, when I say leadership position, that is exactly it. But I've been a leader. We are all leaders, is what I'm saying. We are all leaders in our spheres. Now, you can have a positional authority that puts you on the forefront, but we're all leaders. So this is where that's the very kernel of collective leadership. Everyone is a leader. Even if you're just looking after yourself and now, you're still a leader in your own whatever, as long as you link, across organizational goals and things. So my leadership was a journey in terms of coming to where I am. I learned by having informal and formal learning practices, seminars like this through my health management MSc. But importantly, I learned practically. It's like Professor Shola was saying, it's a journey of discovery. Naturally, for all of, well, I wouldn't say for all of us, so most of us that come through the Nigerian system, you have been trained to defer to authority. You have been, you can have a say, but the buck stops with the boss. We have Oga at the top in every sphere, in our universities, at home, even with the way that we're brought up as parents, in our homes and all of that. So by default, we all tend to kind of mostly, like I say, nobody is always 100% autocratic, but you kind of defer into, that mode. And I would say that at the very beginning, when I began to have teams under me, I was quite like that. I was quite cut and dry. Okay. And, I said, why haven't you done? And here being the UK, I was picked up on that because people generally don't tend to prefer that type of style. Okay. Was I right in some of the things that I was challenging and wanted to get done? Yes. But was the manner correct and all of that? It didn't suit, my environment. And I quickly had to relearn. So there was a lot of learning and unlearning by, just by being in those positions where I began to redefine myself, begin to, like you said, look at myself, understand what are my motivations, my values, understand myself, know, okay, why am I angry at this thing? What is making me this way and that way? And began to develop a consciousness around how I actually want to live, because I found out that I actually got far more done being a more collaborative, compassionate, and collective type of leader than being hierarchical, because people just put up barriers as soon as you are the way you are, and all you're doing is just managing grievances, just being pulled into one grievance or the other, as opposed to actually, getting things done. Your motivation for being a leader is actually to achieve your goals and aspirations, and not there to point fingers or blame or whatever. So just to answer your question in a succinct way, Adenut, I learned formally by understanding the theoretical framework. What types of leadership styles are there? And then began to learn practically as I began to attain positional leadership. Now, in terms of whether leaders are born or trained, I don't believe leaders are born. I don't believe leaders are born like there are a special set of people, is what I mean. Like, these are leaders. We're all leaders. We can then develop that aspect of ourselves through formal and informal kind of frameworks like I've already discussed. So I don't agree leaders are born. Everybody can lead, and everybody has that nugget, that germ, that thing that they bring to the table and can contribute. So I hope I've just kind of answered that in a bit of a succinct way. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, Professor Shonola, I could see your hands up. Are you? Okay. Okay. Is Professor Shunala there?
Hello.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just
I can see your hand up. Yeah.
yeah, just one quick thing. I think it's important the to say this that different contexts, different countries have different approach to leadership development. And I think I alluded to it earlier. The UK has a solid structure that supports leadership development for healthcare leaders. And they recognize that leadership occurs at all levels, including students. Students can be leaders. And because they recognize that, there's a lot of investment into the training of students to ensure that by the time they get to the point of graduation, they have developed or considered the attributes that are required to lead. And when I say lead, you can lead from the bottom, you can lead at your level, and you can lead at the top. So the person at the bottom can also influence their leaders at the top. So leadership is not always from top down. Leadership can occur from the bottom. A student can suggest something that can lead to a transformation in an organization. Today, for most of the people who are working in the NHS, you carry this badge that says, hello, my name is this. That badge was the suggestion of a student. And it has percolated throughout the whole NHS. So it is important to cycle back to the question that Professor Fatai asked earlier on. We need to go back to looking at how we can strengthen the curriculum that undergraduate students go through. I know somebody mentioned about it being masters. No, these are pre-reg master students. These are students that are coming to the point of graduating as a physio. So leadership is a part of it. The HCPC recognizes leadership. In fact, they have just changed the standards of proficiency of the HCPC. Standard 8.1 to 8.7 or 8.8 requires every physiotherapist, anybody trying to get to become a physiotherapist registrable in the UK, to have to be demonstrating the proficiencies of leadership, being able to influence leaders, influence services, influence others, motivate others to do things that will cause transformational changes in the NHS or in the setting that you're working in. So it's vitally important to recognize what those learning might be, and then embed that into academic curriculum. The second point I would quickly like to make is this, that leadership is not just learning, it's not academic. Ms. Yonola also mentioned it. She learned it by doing. Leadership, you learn by, there's some bit of it that you've got to learn the theories and all that. But a large proportion of it is doing, is getting involved, exploring yourself, getting a 360 feedback on how people perceive you, being a part of a team and getting feedback on your effectiveness. I'm sure she will also get feedback from our staff that gives her feedback on how she's leading them. That's all part of our leadership development. So we should be comfortable to be an effective leader. We should be comfortable to hearing or getting feedback from people. And sometimes those feedback may not be great, may not be what we want to hear. But then we should be ready to hear feedback, to change, and to keep developing. It's a journey that we are all on, and hopefully, if we are flexible and we are open to development and being reflective learners, we will definitely become very, very effective leaders that can impact our society effectively. So I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Prof. And again, thank you, Mrs. Modupe Shoniola, for that presentation. Thank you for everyone who has contributed. Professor Fatai Adeniyi, Dr. Paula Denote, and indeed everyone who have put aside time to attend this seminar. We would be ending recording at this point because the next session of this gathering would be for members only, so we won't have to record that. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening all. We'll be back in 5 minutes for the general meeting. Thank you.